And I'm like the preacher. I'm about wore out. But it wasn't all because of the fair. Hey, let's get started. We've been studying prophecy, right? Especially fulfilled prophecy in the land of Israel. And, well, first of all, Ron's not in here this morning. He's out on guard duty, but I want to thank him for standing in for me last week. Got a chance to go camping last week, and Ron filled in for me. Appreciate that. But we've been studying fulfilled prophecy in the land of Israel. And God has a plan for the land of Israel, for the people of Israel. God's got a plan for them, and He's going to fulfill that plan no matter. He's got a time schedule, I guess you want to say, and it'll be in His time when He fulfills all the plans that He has for Israel. But He's getting the land ready. He promised all through the Old Testament what He's going to do for Israel, His people, and He's doing it. Everything He's ever said about Israel. He picked them as His people, gave them a nation to live in, told them if they were obedient, they'd be blessed. They weren't. They were not. He gave them an obligation. They didn't fulfill that obligation. And He told them that if they didn't, the land would be taken away from them. It was. And He said, I'm going to bring them back. And He said the land will lay desolate for actually almost 2,000 years. The land, when Israel was scattered throughout the world and other countries came in and settled the place, the land went barren, desolate. No crops grew there. And God said that's the way it was going to be. When they left the land, that's the way it was going to be. That's the way it turned out. But then He said, I'm going to bring you back into the land. A prophecy fulfilled. In the process of being fulfilled right before our very eyes. He said, I'm going to bless the land. When you return to the land, I'm going to bless the land. It'll no longer be barren and desolate. And He said over in Deuteronomy that He would, that Israel would supply the world with food one day. They're doing that right now. So a lot of these prophecies that we read about in the Bible and that we've been reading for the past couple of weeks have been fulfilled. And the reason for this study is if all these prophecies are being fulfilled and it all's leading up into the kingdom age. The kingdom age is after the rapture, after the tribulation. The tribulation comes after the rapture. So if all these promises are being fulfilled, how close is the rapture? Think about that. So do you know that all denominations don't believe that? There's this teaching going around in some of your mainstream churches called replacement theology. They're saying that all the promises that God made to Israel have been taken away from Israel and they've been given to the church. And they call the church the new Israel. And some of your mainstream churches, Roman Catholics teach that. The Lutheran churches teach that. The big theological word for that is supersessionism. Supersessionism. Common people like me, it's replacement theology. The church has replaced Israel. Methodist churches teach that. And you know there's even some Baptist churches teach that? They're called Reformed Baptist churches. And mainly they are Baptist churches that teach Calvinism. We know what Calvinism is. You know, God's got this person picked out to be saved. God has picked that person out not to be saved. And no matter how hard this person begs to be saved, he ain't going to get saved because it's not God's plan. I mean, that's Calvinism. And no matter how hard you resist, if God has you planned for salvation, you're going to eventually accept it. That's Calvinism. Well, they teach replacement theology. And there's some other smaller denominations also too that teach that. But they say that God has taken all the promises of Israel and he has given them to the church. But what we've been looking at here for the past several weeks is all the promises that God has made to Israel. He's keeping them. Think about this. In several places in the Bible, God says that I will be their God and they will be my people. Talking about the land of Israel, talking about the people of Israel. And he also says in several places that he'll give them an everlasting kingdom for an inheritance. Now, let me say this. Over in Numbers chapter 23, verse 19, says that God is not a man that he can lie, nor is he the Son of Man that he needs to repent. It says, has he not said, and will he not do it? And we all say, well, yeah, that's what we believe about God too. Well, God said that he was going to give that land to Israel for an everlasting kingdom, and that he was going to bless it, and that he would always be their God, and they would be his people. God said that. God cannot lie. Now, these people who say that, think about this. If God promised Israel something, and then he changed his mind and said, well, you were disobedient, so I'm not going to keep my promises to you. Now, think about this. What does that do about your salvation? God promised you, believe in me, accept me, believe in who I said I am, and I'll give you eternal life. Promised. But in a few years from now, I'm going to take it away from you because I don't like the way you're acting. Does that sound like God? No. If he could change his mind about Israel, what would keep you from changing his mind about our salvation? You know, when you were disobedient? Did your mom and dad disown you because you were disobedient when they gave you orders, instructions, and you didn't keep them? Did they disown you? No, they're your parents. God said, I will be their people, they will be, I will be their God, and they will be my people for an everlasting inheritance. He's not the great promise breaker, he's the great promise keeper. He's not going to change his mind. In fact, over in Zechariah chapter 2, verse 8, he says, the prophet Zechariah says, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory he has sent me into the nations which spoiled you, for he that toucheth you touches the apple of his eye. Have you ever said something like, have you ever used that term? Like, oh, they're the apple of his eye. These grandkids, they're the apple of my eye. They're precious. And you're going to love them and protect them. They're the apple of your eye. God says Israel is my people, and they're the apple of my eye, and anybody that touches them, harms them, is the same as harming me. Does that sound like that he's forgotten them? No. Israel's precious to God. And then over in Joel chapter 3, verse 2, he says, I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. God says the people who mistreat my people, Israel, he said the people who mistreat my people, he says, I'm going to judge them. When they say the valley of Jehoshaphat, they're talking about a place of judgment. God says, I'm going to take them into the valley of Jehoshaphat. I'm going to judge those people who mistreat my people and have scattered them throughout the world. Hey, did you hear on the news last week this conflict between Israel and Hamas over in Gaza? They're trying. France, Canada, the United Kingdom, which is made up of England and Scotland, Ireland, Wales, France, Canada, the United Kingdom has declared, they announced last week that if Israel does not cease fire and pull out of Gaza, at the next assembly of the United Nations, these countries are going to recognize Palestine as their own state, as their own nation. God said there in Joel, he says, I'm going to judge those people who divide and part my land. Hey, Canada, France, the United Kingdom, they better be careful. God says he's going to judge those people who part the land of Israel. But getting back to the original reason for this study is that God has a plan for Israel. He's fulfilling that plan in his own time, and it's getting closer and closer. I think, personally, it's getting closer and closer to the rapture of the church, Christ stepping out on the clouds and calling his church home. I think it's close. I think it's very close. And so, that's one of the reasons we're studying prophecy fulfilled in the land of Israel, because God is getting the land ready for the kingdom. Okay, so we've looked at several prophecies. We're going to look at a couple today. Over in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 6, there's God is giving, just like he does us, he gives us a blessing, but he gives us a warning also. Blessing is salvation. A warning is be obedient. He's telling the land of Israel, he's telling the Jewish people that he's giving them a blessing. Over in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1 through 6, he's giving them a warning and a blessing at the same time. Listen to this. Talking to Israel. If thou shalt hearken diligently unto the Lord, blessed shall be the fruit of thy ground. Now remember, for almost 2,000 years, after 70 AD, when the Emperor Roman General Titus burned Jerusalem and killed millions of people, and and the survivors scattered throughout the whole world, which God had prophesied back in Moses' day. God said that would happen. That's around 70 A.D. So until 1948, almost 2,000 years, they were not even allowed to go back into their own land. They had to sneak back in there little by little. But God said this over in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1 through 6. He says, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the Lord, blessed shall be the fruit of thy ground and the fruit of thy cattle. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. A blessing. Israel, I'm going to bless you so much you can't believe how blessed you're going to be. But in the next verses there, same chapter, Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 through 24, comes the warning. He says, but if thou not hearken unto the voice of the Lord, same for us, to observe and do all his commandments, cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the increase of thy land, and the Lord shall make thy land powder and dust. You remember? I said a few minutes ago that when they were in 70 A.D., after 70 A.D., when they were scattered throughout the whole world, and all these different countries would come in, they would tear down the cities and build new cities. They would rename the old cities. For almost 2,000 years, the land was desolate and barren and didn't grow anything, just like God said right there. They were disobedient. He told me, he said, I'm going to bless you if you're obedient. And then if you're not obedient, I'm going to curse you, curse the land. And they have been for all these centuries. But now they're back in the land. In Deuteronomy chapter 29, verses 23 through 27, God, the prophet, says, the land is brimstone and salt. No grass there. And remember, I mentioned here a couple weeks ago, Mark Twain visited the land of Israel. At that time, it was called the land of Palestine, in 1896. And after visiting the area, he said, who in their right mind would want to live here? He said, the land is barren, it's desolate. He said, nothing growing here but weeds here and there. He said, who in their right mind would want to live here? Just like God said, he said, he told Israel, follow me, be obedient, I'll bless the land. Be disobedient, he said, I'm going to scatter you throughout the world, and the land's going to become desolate. And that's what happened to it. But that was the warning. In Isaiah chapter 27, verse 6, listen to this, comes a prophecy yet to be, now a prophecy is given that is being fulfilled right now. In Isaiah chapter 27, verse 6, the prophet Isaiah says, Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the world with fruit. You know, somebody, if they would tell me, say, oh, Mike, in your future, man, you're going to be blessed beyond all means. You're going to have everything you want. God's telling Israel that. And at that time, people go, how can that land produce enough fruit for the whole world? In Isaiah chapter 62, verse 4, God says to the land of Israel, to Jewish people, thou shalt no longer be called forsaken and desolate. Just like Mark Twain said, who would want to live in that land? Desert, barren, desolate, nothing but weeds here and there. Well, let's jump ahead now to this day and time. That prophecy is being fulfilled right now. Because the land is so agriculturally advanced today that every kind of fruit and vegetable known to man grows in Israel, except for one, the coconut. Hey, God has said, I'm going to bless that land. When you return to the land, I'm going to bless that land beyond your imagination. You'll feed the world. That's what they're doing now. Only 2% of the people of Israel, listen to this, there's over 7 million people, Jews, in the land of Israel right now. Only 2% of the people of Israel produce all the fruit for the whole nation and also exports fruit to Europe and other countries. Melons, strawberries, kiwis, avocados. God said, your fruit will fill the world one day. That's what's happening right now. When the British were in control of Palestine until 1948, they would not let the Jews return because they said the land could not possibly sustain a major increase in population. There was about, at that time, there was about 600,000 Jews in Palestine at that time. Today, there's more than 7.2 million people, Jews, in the land. Not counting the foreigners that are living there. And not only do they produce enough to feed themselves, they export food to other countries. God said, you're going to be able to produce so much food. Israel is going to bud, it's going to blossom. The deserts are going to grow. And you'll be able to produce enough food to fill the world. That's what they're doing right now. From a desolate, barren land, just a little over 100 years ago, since 1948, Israel is now feeding the world. So, the prophecy of Israel filling the world with fruit has been fulfilled. Just one more step in the progression of the church being raptured home. Listen to this. The Jewish people are world known for their agricultural ability. Everywhere they went, they produced. Crops can't grow without water. Water's always been scarce in Israel. So how are they growing all this stuff? In Deuteronomy chapter 11, listen to this. Verse 10. For the land that thou goest is not like Egypt. It is hills and valleys, and drinketh the water from heaven. Listen to what I've written down here. Israel receives rain beginning in November and ending in April. The rest of the year is hot and dry. Without irrigation, the prophecy of abundant crops would not be fulfilled. Israel has the best and most efficient irrigation system in the world. Some of these countries, we send missionaries to the Sudan, Nigeria, some of those countries where the people are starving to death. And some of these missionaries, they go there and they teach these people how to irrigate the land, how to grow crops so they can feed themselves, take care of themselves. In the land of Israel, Israel has the best irrigation system in the world. Crops grow in abundance. Listen to this. Farmers in Israel now grow 3 crops a year. From a land that was desolate and bare to a land that produces 3 crops a year. Here in the United States, some of you people who raise crops, corn and hay and stuff like that, you don't get a yield 3 times a year. In Israel, they yield 3 crops a year. Israel gets 30% more cotton per acre than the farmers in the southern states of America. You get 30% more cotton produced in the land of Israel than in the states of in the southern states of America that's noted for the cotton fields. In Amos chapter 9, verse 11 through 15, God says through the prophet Amos that he's going to bless the land so much that you can't plow the land fast enough for the crops to grow. He says, the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth the seed. What he's saying is people are walking along, they're sowing the seed, and behind them there's a gal in front plowing the furrows, and then there's a man behind him sowing the seeds, and there's a man behind him reaping the crops. So, with the prophecy of Amos being fulfilled, can the rapture of the church be very far away? That's the whole intent of this series of prophecies being fulfilled in Israel, is that God is blessing Israel the way that he said he would, preparing it for the kingdom age. And like I said, the kingdom age comes after the tribulation. God is preparing the land. But before the tribulation, the rapture happens. God is preparing the land. Prophecy is being fulfilled right before our very eyes. How close is the rapture? Better start living like it could happen today. God says that. Look for me any day. He says, love for me to come back. He said, live like I'm coming back today. He's saying that to us, to the church. And he's telling us through his prophecy being fulfilled here, he said, it's close. Get ready. Let me do one more here. Remember? Well, that's a long one there. The trees of Israel. I'll just give you a heads up on that. Throughout those almost 2,000 years that Israel wasn't, the nation of Israel was not there, and that different countries come in, they conquered them, and one country would come in and settle the land. They wouldn't produce anything. And then another country would come in and take over that country. They wouldn't produce anything. The land lay barren and desolate, not producing any crops, enough to feed the people or anything like that. They changed the names of the cities and everything. They cut down trees. To give you a preview of this long prophecy here, the trees of Israel have returned. You say, big deal. Yes, it is a big deal. Because for almost 2,000 years, there were no trees in Israel. It was a barren, desolate land that couldn't even grow crops. But the prophecy of the trees of Israel has been fulfilled and is being fulfilled right now. And like I said, that's a long prophecy. We'll get into that next week. We got to quit right now. But think about that. God is blessing Israel to the point to where the world looks at them and wishes that they could be like them. The best irrigation system in the world, 3 crops a year. God is blessing Israel the way that He said He would. If He's keeping the promises to Israel, is He not going to keep His promise to you? He's the great promise keeper, not the promise breaker. Let's have prayer. Lord, thank You for this day. Thank You for Your blessings in life. Thank You for Your watch care.